Hey, how's it going, everyone? Infa here. Today, I'm sharing with you all a podcast discussion I had with some competitive PvP players of Chronicles. The video will be divided into multiple videos as the podcast lasted for nearly 3 hours. Editing is a bit scuffed, but I hope everyone would have a better understanding of some things that was talked about, perhaps seeing it from other players' perspective. Or if you have a different view, please comment down below. I'll be making notes of any comments that can bring in more perspective if we ever decide to do another podcast. Okay, so I'm gonna start by, I guess, introducing myself. I'm Infa. I only just started doing content creation for Summoner's War. Acid, would you like to introduce yourself? Since when you've been playing? What summoner do you main? If you have mained a different summoner in the past, what made the change? What made you do the change, and so on. Hey, Luna. Acid. Okay, maybe Acid's not here. Would you like to go first then, Gandalf?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm Gonndalf. I'm from Tilasha. I started as an Orbia right when the game launched, and I changed to Kina like a year ago because of Siege, because we just figured out that Kina is the best summoner for the defense, because the AI is playing it pretty good, and you just have more variety with defense. And Orbia had a lot of weaknesses. Cleave was also not that good, easy to counter. So yeah, that made the change. Then I went to Soletta when she released. Yeah, well, I had a lot of fun with her during the time where she was considered broken, and then I swapped back to Kino because yeah, she's, let's say, the easiest summoner to play, even though she gets a lot of hate at the moment.
Yeah, that's in terms of like AI and even in manual play, right?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on your monster pool, and I had a lot of LDs that were just offensive, so nothing really in defense. Like I was lacking units like Lima and others, so it was only natural for me to change to Kina.
Yeah, cool. Okay, Acid?
Sorry about that. I didn't realize it was push to talk. Yeah, so my name's AcidXBurn. I've been playing since original launch and the US. Once EU happened, I switched over to EU for global just because I wanted to do a soft reset on the account. Originally, I was just kind of playing, kind of seeing how things were. Started out originally as a Cleef player, and when we switched over to EU, tried out Kina, Orbia, moved to Soletta when she launched, and then moved to Heath when he launched, and I've been playing Heath since his release.
Okay, great, thanks. So let's go on to the first topic. So, current meta and state of the game, right? How do you think is the current meta shaping up? Like, do you think that there's like very specific monsters or teams that's like dominating the, I guess, the top PvP? Gonndalf, do you wanna go first?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously there has been a lot of change. Like, I should probably say that I had a break for around 5 months, and I just returned like a couple of weeks ago to the game, and there were some changes, some interesting changes, and I also followed a bit what's happening in Brawl and the normal arena. And what you see is, of course, Artamiel with his new artifact. He's basically in every pick that you see. Also, the Light Ray from the collab, very popular unit, and Light Assassin, Lagwal, or whatever his name is. Like, there are a lot of units that are being constantly picked. Like, it's either you pick him or your opponent. It's like whoever goes first, well, gets the unit.
Yeah. Acid, how about you? How's your experience with top PvP right now?
So the meta itself has shifted quite a bit. When we get into it, let's look at where the meta was originally, let's say like 6 months ago, right? So we saw that you had characters like Ophelia, right? Someone that can do a massive root. It was all about the CCs. It was all about invincibility and immunity to combat the CCs. So what they did is they did change the meta quite a bit. We moved away from immunity is what everyone was running.
Yep.
Invincibility is what everyone was running, right? That was the meta for a while. Is you ran that with a root, and then you countered anything that didn't shoot from an arrow or a staff. But now what's happened is you've seen a drastic meta shift with the introduction of some of these collab units like Lena and Ray, right? And so now what the meta is looking at is Ray provides a lot of that similarity with the invincibility, a lot of the similarity with the immunity as she procs it with an additional character. But mainly what's happening within arenas and brawls is you're seeing summoners that provide more support as the primaries. This is where you see a lot of the changes coming in with characters like Cleeth and Heath and Soletta and so on. And this is where you're getting a lot of that backlash. Is the problem is monsters are great. They've designed the monsters to be outstanding. A lot of people have the light dark units that are really prominent within PvP. And what you're seeing now is Kina and Cleef are probably the two most predominant in any arena or brawl, simply because of the utility that they bring to it, not because of how strong the character itself is.
Right. Would you guys say that there's like a good diversity on monster picks in high PvP, or would you say that it's like mostly the typical units being picked?
Well, I think there is a small pool that is constantly picked, as I said before. Of course, it depends on your summoner, I guess, to pick different units. There are counter picks, it's situational, but I think the core pick is more or less the same.
Right.
Well, see, here's the big difference on that. Let me comment on this. Is it's really going to depend on two factors. One is where you're at in the ranks, right? If you're playing high scale, you're in masters above, then yeah, you're only going to see maybe a set of 10 different monsters that are being used. But when you get into like gold, or you get into some of the other ranks or casual, is you see a broader diversity of things. But what you tend to notice is once you start getting into those upper echelons, into the master ranks, you're fighting these people that are in the top 1,000 of the world, is they're only using these very specific monsters every time, and for good reason too.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
In that case, what do you think is the general sentiment of the community right now regarding the very low diversity on monster picks? Like, how do you think people feel about, being limited to those monsters just to play competitively?
So, to be honest with you, to play competitively, you don't have to have all of these monsters. And in fact, there are others that aren't as hard to get in ways, right? Like in the top echelons here, you can see that you have green version of Ray. You can see that you have characters like the Green Phoenix as well. Like these are ones that you can come by easy, but most of these are going to benefit players like Kina. This is where the issue comes in again, is when you have characters like Soletta, you have characters like Orbia, you have characters like Heath. They're very specialized, right? They're not really there to support their team. They're there with a mission in mind. Right. So when you have Soletta is going to be either casting some CC on you, trying to get you rooted down so that you can take a lot of damage. She's going to potentially eat through barriers. You have Orbia trying to prevent you from healing to make a quick match, right? Heath has a lot of utility for himself, but no utility for the monsters he's with, which is why you see so many buffs to him. He's trying to be a true assassin. But each one of these has one goal in mind, and that is, I need to end this match as fast as possible. When you're playing a Keith player, you're playing a Kina player, time is your best friend. These are the types of summoners that can really utilize that vast majority of what's out there. So you're not so fine-tuned and only picking a very few select monsters to play with in these arenas and Brawl Arena. if you want diversity, Cleef and Kina is where you have to go for that.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah.
With Kina, you have a lot of opportunities that makes her actually
Yeah.
my favorite summoner to play, because I can play around, I can test around, and with
Yeah.
other summoners, you can't do that.
I would assume, like, especially because of the drafting, right? Because obviously the very first thing you do is you choose your summoner's element. And then if you're going as a DPS summoner, obviously you're kind of locked into that element for, like, I believe 40 seconds into the fight. Which means that if they basically, like, counterpick you with the opposite element, then it's, I guess, more of a challenge in comparison. Whilst if you're playing Kina, obviously you pick your element, which is very diverse, and pretty much all elements except light, I believe, is quite useful. And then depending on your opponent's picks, you can still choose a DPS that would work around your enemy's picks, right? I mean, correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I don't play competitive as serious, but that's the general logic that I'm seeing here. Am I correct? Would you say?
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah.